When Walt Disney and his Imagineers, his guys who designed Disneyland, started thinking about the idea for the Haunted Mansion, it was really early in the history of building theme parks. And all of his Imagineers were filmmakers. They were production designers and special effects guys. So there's a spirit and a style and an approach to the work in the Haunted Mansion that also kind of transcended over into our work on the film.
Whenever I go to Disneyland, it's one of the first rides I want to go to. I always like the spooky house, you know, and Haunted Mansion is like the definitive spooky house.
The thing that I was the most excited about was just trying to duplicate some of the stuff that I enjoy so much on the ride. I was a big geek about duplicating the stuff as much as I could.
The technology and the artistry behind the technology really gives us the ability to take original ideas from the ride, anywhere from Madame Leota to the ghosts flying up around to stars in the sky, and really take that to another level where it feels three-dimensional, where they're interacting with the characters.
My family visited Disneyland once a year religiously, driving several states. It was always one of my favorite rides, and to be able to do something connected with this has been really fantastic.
Of course, Rick Baker is a legend, somebody who I'd wanted to work with probably ever since I knew who Rick Baker was, and this was, I guess, the chance that I'd been waiting for.
Rick Baker made those zombies. Makeup's incredible. Those guys had to like sit for hours, you know, go through this process.
I love Disneyland, and I especially love the Haunted Mansion, you know, being a strange guy that I am. The steps for creating the zombies basically the same as creating any kind of character. I mean, first it starts with the designs. I mean, I did a lot of paintings on the computer to come up with initial concepts. My concern was trying to keep that kind of Disney kind of family feel to them. And some of my initial designs were a little more family-friendly, kind of, you know, but they wanted them to be scary, you know. I just said, don't hold back as much, you know, and really make them more realistic. In order for this to work as some kind of costume, I said, we really need incredibly thin people. We took casts of some of the very thin bodies. And then in those casts, we sculpted in modeling clay the new features, the skulls and the teeth and the rotted flesh and so on. Then also we had to do the whole body, and we sculpted some bones and then molded them and applied those to this undersuit that the person wore. Kind of like those, you know, skeleton Halloween costumes where they just paint bones on spandex. We did kind of a three-dimensional version of that. Then we put the costumes on it and built the costumes.
We made clothes that were layered with 3 or 4 different fabrics, like gauze or silk, and then completely shredded to nothing.
I wanted them to be very wispy and thin, but I felt that we needed to do them because we needed to hide the person inside of it, and it just exposed the bones where we wanted them to be exposed.
It's just like a big furry coat, actually. It's not that bad. They pretty much built it around my body, so I can move freely, and I feel pretty good.
Putting moss around his foot, because these are supposed to be tights, and we don't want to see the black unitorn that everything's stitched to.
A lot of these people that were zombies were, you know, atmosphere players, you know, they're extras. And I was a little concerned. I just didn't want to show up on the first day with all these people and say, okay, now act like a zombie, and God knows what we were going to get. So we had a couple zombie schools, as we called it, here in the shop, where we got all these guys out. And we said, you have to climb out of a coffin. How are we going to do that? We worked on good ways to come out of the coffin. And it was kind of silly, you know, but I think it helped.
For the most part, there are going to be people in appliance makeups, you know, rubber pieces and hair pieces and so on.
This is one of our zombie costumes here. He's the one I think that you see come out of the coffin in the middle of the mausoleum there. This is a foam rubber skull that fits over the actor's face. Very realistically done. And then we did a lot of, you know, decaying flesh and such that's on it. What we did here is we used a dental acrylic, what dentures are made out of. We make our own dentures. Most of the ghosts had dentures that they wore as well. So that's one of the easiest things in reality, because this material's already made. And in fact, these teeth, now I look at them, are actually the already pre-made teeth. So you can buy some teeth for dentures that are pre-made. So
we're making 15 and 20 different zombies, and they're all like individual looking.
This one, for example, we did as a kind of an old geezer one, you know, so we gave him, you know, like no teeth, basically, you know, to give him a little bit more character. He walked with a cane.
We have separate parts for some with separate arms. And I've done zombies before, and these are really, really skeletal.
One guy gets his head knocked off, so we had a blue screen hood that we put on our actor. Film films of this type were the type of films that inspired me to get into this business, you know, and to want to do makeup and play with this kind of stuff. And so I was just really excited by it.
It's all about planning. And in this case, we took it one step further and created a computer previs where we actually defined what the shots were going to be like using a computer program.
So we have anything from doing a simple composite of putting an actor over a background to removing a wire that might be coming out from one of the actor's sides while they're flying around the room, to completely computer-generated ghosts flying completely around in a computer-generated environment. So the scope of the work is really broad.
Whom do you seek?
Madame Leota makes a very important contribution to the movie in providing a lot of clues for Jim and his family to break the curse of the Haunted Mansion. So we had to figure out a way to get Jennifer Tilly's head inside a ball that's got stormy green smoke in it.
It's a lot like doing cartoons in that you're working by yourself and you have to imagine all the other things that are going on. And you do the line over and over and over again until you get it to where you want it.
Oh, I see. You're just gonna sit there feeling sorry for yourself.
So it's quite a challenge to figure out how to do it on set, and then later at ImageWorks try to figure out how to get all the effects inside the ball as well. We'd start out with Eddie on set with a crystal ball in the middle of the frame that's actually just pure white plastic. That would create a glow around the room and a glow on the faces, so that later in digital effects, we'd be able to add our effects and still have the glow on the faces.
One of the key challenges really is to just make sure that the eye line is working on both ends of everything, because you're shooting Jennifer Tilly separate from Eddie Murphy in most instances.
So we take those background plates with just Eddie and this glowing ball in the center, and that becomes the basis for the photography for Jennifer Tilly on blue screen later. So how do we get Jennifer Tilly inside a crystal ball? Well, we start out with Jennifer wrapped in a blue bib, shot against blue screen. That allows us to subtract her head and actually get it inside the ball. So we take Jennifer's head, we take this next smoke element here, we add a reflection. So as you see the seance room as it's spinning around, you see it in the reflection here. And in the final composite, you see all of these different elements come together.
Awaken the spirits with your tambourine.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't see you. Where are you?
So we go from blue screen to getting her head right inside the ball with smoke moving around. It feels like she's projected from the light.
Lift us up to the light, and lead us through this stormy night.
And we have some other shots that are very complicated with Eddie spinning around a room. The crystal ball lifts off the table, and this whole chaotic environment's created with spinning instruments. And the only thing that's done live action on set is Eddie against blue screen with a spinning table. The rest of the room is being created completely digitally. It's spinning around. All of the instruments are digital creations.
I forget the miles per hour that the chair could go, but it was something where none of the stunt people would even get in the chair for how fast it could actually physically go. Eddie did get in the chair, and we do rotate him.
How's acting?
Later on, ImageWorks took photographs of the real seance room, and they basically built a CG room. So they take the elements and then they spin Eddie with the room, the CG room behind it.
When we first met with John Meyer, we were certainly impressed with the depth and breadth of his work. And John had grown up loving Disneyland and being a huge fan of the Haunted Mansion.
I get to work with all the visuals of the film, everything you see on camera, the architecture, the colors, the furniture. We first start doing sketches of what we think the house should look like. And then once we start getting closer as far as the illustrations go, I like using foam core models. When you're on the attraction at Disneyland and you look down into the ballroom, you're from the viewpoint of a balcony going across the pipe organ, the dining room table, seeing the whole grand hall laid out. So we thought it might be fun if we put in the mezzanine and maybe can let the film audience see the room in the same way people going to Disneyland on the attraction would see it. We take a little video camera, and we put in little figures, and we walk through it with a little video camera.
So what we do is we take the lipstick camera when we want to look at what the sets are actually going to be like, because it's very small scale, and you can get a sense of how we're going to actually line up shots.
It gives you a pretty good sense of what it might look like. Once we get the models to a state that we like them, we then been dropping it into a 3D world. We're able to decide exactly where we want to plot the house on the land, so it's really been terrific. It was about 100 people over the course of 3 months to create the house. We built a 45-foot facade of the exterior of the house. We created roads, we created swamps, we created huge dead oak trees that we had to fabricate ourselves. So it was an enormous amount of work. Welcome to the Haunted Mansion. What you're looking at right now is a 40-foot structure that through a CG top-off will become 80 feet tall.
We worked directly with John on creating the very top of it, the A-frame, the cupola, all the urns, expanding all the skies. So the collaboration has been really intense on this show.
We really started literally from scratch, sinking in telephone poles and putting up walls and plastering and painting to get this effect.
Behind the Haunted Mansion is a spectacular family graveyard.
You know they have dead people in the backyard.
There's literally hundreds of headstones, and also since this is based in New Orleans, we've also done a number of the above-ground tombs. In fact, even the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland let us take a few of their real tombstones. So we have a few of the tombstones from the ride actually snuck in. We started reading through the description of the set of this mausoleum, being sort of the subterranean and underground area and coffins. Then when you dig a hole in New Orleans, it fills with water. We said, great, we got a big hole underwater, let's fill it with water. So we flooded the bottom of it.
Oh, no! No.
Whenever you have a project where the art department is so intricately involved with every department, visual effects, special effects, wardrobe, the camera, it always just makes it so much more interesting.
The sets are really like mansions, much bigger than the ride. So when I was awestruck by the stuff that they had done.
Mom.
What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be up here. This is unspeakable. Unspeakable. You have to leave.
Who is that?
That's none of your business. That's you now. Come on, get out of here. It's way past your bedtime.
Her name was Elizabeth. Are you kids hungry? Does anybody want a cookie?
Cookies? Don't offer them cookies. They're trespassers. Trespassers don't get cookies. This is none of their concern.
It is their concern. They're involved.
Involved in what?
Well, for starters.
What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that.
Ghost, it's okay. You can say it.
Right. That's just great. He's not going to be happy about any of this, and I'm not going to be the one to tell him. Do you understand the ramifications of this? We have to stay in line.
We all want to break the curse, don't we?
Yes, but leave it up to the master. Just remember this, Sonny, when you get married someday. Till death do you part? I wish you never part.
So you're both dead?
It's been 122 years since the black spell fell over this house. 122 years since she died.
She looks just like our mom.
Yes, some people believe they're one and the same.
That's enough. Do you know when to shut up? Are you paid by the word?
Who was she?
She was our friend. We loved her. Oh, you loved her too, you insensitive toad!
I respected her, certainly. She was an interesting conversationalist. She had a certain wit, yes. An unspoken charm. But But there's no need to get sentimental. She's back, and now the curse will be broken. You see, it all works out in the end. You just sometimes have to wait for a century or two.
But what if it's not her? Did you ever think of that?
It's not for us to question. The master...
Hide! Hide!
One of the things we're trying to do on this show is get a really new look of ghosts. And we've kind of come up with a theory that we live off energy of the planet. You and I eat food and eat plants and interact with the sun and do all these things, but how do ghosts survive? Why are they still around, or what do they look like? Our idea was that they're still used to seeing themselves the way they look. Like you and I see ourselves in a mirror and we kind of know what we look like, but they're stealing and taking energy around from the environment that they're still in.
I didn't realize I was a ghost. Am I a ghost?
We're shooting ghosts. We're putting ghosts in the graveyard.
Wide all around, please. Roll video.
We are doing what we consider the part B of the cemetery fly-through. And it's a large combination of motion control photography, matte painting, blue screen photography for ghosts, and this really large Steadicam shot. And it's really almost considered a sequence by itself. I mean, it's one shot, which we call the CE19 shot, cemetery exterior, and it's going to take up probably about 2 minutes in the film. It's one continuous shot, even though we're shooting it over many days and many locations.
Okay, folks, we're gonna do one rehearsal run, please.
Camera's moving.
Camera's moving, watch your backs.
My shot is coming down out of the sky and then starting to walk through the cemetery as if I guess I'm some sort of spirit floating eye for the audience.
It leads you to go faster again.
And a shot like the Steadicam shot, which is the fly through the graveyard, flying by all these different ghost tableaus that won't be there when we shoot them. But we still need to look at them long enough in order for us to see what it is.
You have to go up the hill. I think it was a little close. I want to see more of them, be a little wider on them.
So now it's a little bank there, then tilt, and then back to level.
Straight towards them?
Yeah, still banking, okay, yeah.
The difficulty is the elements that you don't see, that you have to frame for. You have to pretend they're there and go around them, and they're really not there.
Since we're doing a lot of stuff that will be combined with other things that either reshoot or first unit shoots, you have to have a great deal of sort of imagination that fills in the blanks of what it's really going to look like.
It's like fantasy because the visual effects comes in and adds so much to the shot that you're just basically flying with this through the cemetery.
You see where the camera is at position 1 is going to be close up on Eddie in the hearse as we're traveling along with the hearse. The camera's going to be pulling out from Eddie's face. Ghost bicyclists come from around the camera and to the side of us.
And we turn with the bicycle rider to see that he's in fact floating in midair. And then we're looking in a certain other direction, realizing there's 4 bicycle riders, and they're all going towards this gigantic tableau, like a big valley with gravestones and a big graveyard that is our blue screen, but in the end will be a big matte painting.
Of a deep cemetery with hundreds of tombs and fog everywhere. It's supposed to be really creepy.
I play a zombie.
And I'm supposed to be a Russian-Polish opera singer. The camera comes around, I'm the stand-in for her, and I'm supposed to go like this.
What I'm doing here, I am filling in for a ghost. My stand-in job is for a non-existent person.
Which is pretty cool.
Okay, Steve, tilt down a little. When you're working at night, you start with an absolutely blank canvas. If you don't put a light on it, you're not going to see it. I've got 2 balloon lights here tonight, and they're just a nice, soft fill light that we can float up into the trees.
When you're shooting this kind of stuff, you're transforming a bunch of freestanding trees into a huge, whimsical graveyard that is, haunted.
we'll do a camera move, moving up to a ghost. Then on blue screen, we'll do the exact same camera move. And we take those two separate images and put them together, they will match.
We sort of line up the ghosts so they sit on a gravestone or precisely on a branch, on a tree branch, or in a coffin. So a lot of what we do here is placing blue boxes and placing the actors on it, moving them from left to right, and then play our move, match it up with what we shot a month ago, and hope that it lines up.
There are many times when actually during principal photography where I worry when things are changing and you know, there's a lot of elements to put together and you don't really know exactly how many shots you're going to have and you're shooting a lot of things and you sometimes worry about that sometimes, a lot of times. But
we have to do each of these ghosts in separate passes. Meaning passes meaning we run the camera at the same time for each ghost that's in this particular scene. It takes a long time for each pass because we have to get the lights reflecting perfectly and make sure there's enough edge light and that they're locked onto the ground, the costumes look perfect, that each prop they're holding has enough reflectivity. So there's a lot of detail and care that really goes into every ghost.
Well, I wanted to stay true to the feeling of the ride because I'm a big fan of the ride. This is very much the drawing that Mark Davis did. It was the person who was actually the person that's hanging in the Haunted Mansion. That's what I based this on. It looks kind of like this with this one big eye. He's got a noose around his neck, just pulling him off.
Oh, the makeup that Rick Baker has done and the costumes by Mona May sort of blend together perfectly, creating something that looks like a cartoon or picture book come to life.
We're really trying to bring a kind of haunted elegance to the whole feel of the movie. And the costumes, I think, will be richly detailed and beautifully colored.
The DP came to me, he told me about the Scotch light, which reflects light, but he brought it to me in powder form, which is glass beads. And we started experimenting with that, and through about 4 months of experimentation and doing a lot of testing, we actually came up with a formula where we mixed it with paint.
I'm painting the ghost costumes with this special treatment that makes them light up. It contains glass beads that glow when lit with a direct light source. So when you hold the flashlight next to your eye, the beads return light and the clothes light up.
When you point a light directly at the costumes, we have special reflective paint that's sending the light right back to camera, which gives a really magical glow to it on film. And we take that piece of film into the visual effects world back at ImageWorks, and we use the very tiny bright bits to actually emit ghostly smoke and ghostly light, so it gives it a really otherworldly, really ethereal effect.
I love being around highly creative people. There's just an energy and an excitement, and it's inspiring.
Can you give me a little bit of a turn this way?
Okay.
And take in the scenery. Since they're moving through the air in our film world, but in actuality, the camera's moving around them. They're not moving. So the costumes were designed to create a flow and a sort of a wave of texture in the wind behind them.
You can see now we're tying a little string to the scarf to make it look like it's flying off the edge. Didn't even think about that before, so it's going to add a really nice touch to it. And that's really kind of the game that you play, but I think that's part of the fun of filmmaking, actually, is to reinvent all the time.
This is something, don't tell anyone, that I would probably do for nothing. I just love to dress up.
I think we're probably going to be here till we die. No. Till we get the shot right. There's a lot with the blue screen that it's actually, I think, more difficult to get down right than with the actual set. To try to place us in there, I think, takes a while. But, you know, hopefully we'll be out before the sun comes up again.
Right back. Frame accurately? Yeah. All right. We ready to go? What are we doing? Here we go. Ready?
So, Eddie, when we get into position, it's really critical because we're so tight. We need to get you probably an inch back and probably 2 inches higher.
Here we go, on the bell. And roll sound.
Okay, here we go. Lots of bouncing. And action.
Dead people have no consideration for anyone.
Dad, look.
Once all of these elements come together, it then becomes visual effects' job to add all the magic for the ghosts, to get the lighting, get a horse that's only made out of bones, and bring all that stuff to come to life.
Dad,
Yes.
I see dead people.
Nice.
Action.
Would you like a divorce?
Hey, ho, come on now, kids. There's not gonna be anything. Let me explain something to you. I'm gonna find the perfect house for you because I'm committed to doing this, all right? And when we find the perfect house, but when we find the perfect house, you're gonna have to make a move because this is a buyer's market, you know, a seller's market.
Hey, listen, let me tell you something. You're supposed to be a man, right? You're 10. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I've lost my line completely.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, there's nothing to be afraid of in there.
I have to disagree.
See, he caught it too. Hey, whoa, where you going?
I don't like. Man, you put those bad traits on me now.
Okay, here we go.
Very nice. I feel a scene being stolen.
Set. Action.
Wait for us!
What's all this?
Well, I don't know.
One more time.
Did you get the key?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, broke it.
We cut.
Oh, he really broke it.
Her father was caretaker of this manor.
We got to stop, I'm sorry. I couldn't see the mark any longer, and then I started to dance.
Well, your grandpa had great taste in tchotchkes. I'm Jim Evers of Evers and Evers Real Estate. Charmed to make your acquaintance, sir.
Edward Gracie.
This is my wife, Sarah.
Come on, get out of here. It's way past your bedtime.
Her name was Elizabeth.
Who asked you?
She did.
She asked what? I'm so sorry.
No back. I'm not going back.
But Dad!
Hey, I was floating all around the room.
Dad!
Strapped to the chair getting chased by a marching band. Casper, I'm not
Dad,
going.
Mom's in trouble.
What kind of trouble? You hear me talking to you, boy? What kind of trouble?
Very nice.
Hey, I'm not going back.
Dad, Mom's in trouble.
You think that's funny that your mother's in trouble? Huh, boy?
You're my world, my life, my cheeseburger, everything.
What was your name?
I was just looking.
And cut it. Very good. All right, let's
Good job.
Cut it. Very good.
Hey, walk away, guys. Let's go get a beer. Yeah. And we cut.
Parker.
Set.
Oh, Jim.
Next time I say let's go to the lake, we go to the lake.
I love you. That was so.
Hey, man, wake up. He killed her, and I forgot my line.
What is an excellent? That's where I was. Hey man, wake up. He killed her, and it goes away right there. It just goes away.
You see? You see? I'm sorry. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm married to
Hey, I'm sorry. Let's start that one over again, please.
You don't believe in ghosts?
All things are not as they appear.